Okay, rocking up for another spontaneous and unscripted video. This wasn't the video that I was planning on making this week either, but off the back of last week's video, I decided to make a follow-up because I think I did that proverbial opening a tin of worms and then running away thing, and I'm very sorry. If you watched that and you felt like you had more questions at the end of that video than answers, I made this video especially for you. Okay, so if you didn't see last week's video, I'm offended. How come? Don't worry, you can go and watch it after this if you want to. But to summarize, I was inviting people to have a real think about their audience that they were attracting and the people that they were actually talking to. Because I often see people complaining about engagement and low sales, but not just on places like Etsy, which is where we always hear these conversations, but also about places like social media, Instagram. Now, Instagram it's tricky to get any kind of engagement if you're doing all of the things right, but if you're not and you're talking to the wrong audience, then it's not impossible. But not many people think to look at their audience critically and ask themselves, does this audience match what I want to get from this platform? Now, that doesn't mean to say that if you have an audience of fellow business owners that you have got the wrong crowd. You haven't. I would argue that you want some of that because we also go on there for the community, the camaraderie, just being able to have a bit of a whinge sometimes and go, oh my God, this is hard. And then to have other people going, it's not just you, it is hard. And you're like, great, thank you very much. The problem isn't having these people in your audience. The problem is having only fellow business owners in your audience. If fellow business owners are not your key customer, do you see what I'm getting at? Now, not everyone is going to be a possible customer. Just because a pair of eyes sees your thing does not mean that they were ever intending to buy from you. I sell project bags, for example. That's mine over there. Stuff like that. My ideal customer for something like that is going to be somebody who has a need for project bags, knitters, crocheters, embroidery artists, people who just like buying project bags. I don't know. People who are car mechanics and have just gone onto Instagram to kill 5 minutes. I'm going to argue are not going to be my target customer. Yes, they might buy, but who would you put money on being a warmer customer? Be honest. Who would you think is more likely to buy a project bag? Someone who knits regularly and has lots of whips on the go, or a mechanic who's bored? So before you can find your target people, before you can even attempt to speak to them, you have to be crystal clear on what your goal is. And you might have multiple, but just pick one. Just for simplicity, pick one. I'll take myself as an example here. On Instagram, my goal is to make sales. Okay, so I want to make sales of my things. Brilliant. Is Instagram the best fit for that? That's what I've got to ask myself. By the way, I know where I stand with Instagram. It's not a good fit to sell my products, and I don't try to make sales there. All platforms have their own rules, their own game. And when people go to a platform, they have different intentions. Think about your own behavior. When you go on Instagram, what is your primary intention in that moment? Is it to be entertained? Or do you go on there and think, I want to buy something? Be honest. I'm willing to bet that when you pick up and open Instagram, it's usually either to promote your own business, or when you flip it over, your intention is to be entertained. And that is the same for so many platforms. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube, Twitter, Threads, a bunch of other ones that I can't even think of. It's usually for entertainment purposes in some way, shape or form. And this is where, as sellers, it's the thing that we're knocking against. Because if people are there to be entertained, being sold to is going to feel jarring. Now, you can still make it work for you. Even if your intention is not to entertain, you want to promote your business and sell your goods, but you have to play by the platform's rules and by their game. And whenever I think of the people that I know that sell on social media and do it really bloody well, these are the people who have recognized what the platform is, what it isn't, what people are there for and what they're not, and they've managed to make that work for them from a promotional standpoint. I'll give you an example because you need to really see this rather than just have me witter on at you. This lady here runs the Pigeon's Nest. I have purchased multiple things from her in the past, and I found her on social media. I grew the know, like and trust factor on social media before I made my first purchase. This here cardigan that I made this using a pattern that she sells in her shop. Now, the reason why I'm bringing up Bex as an example is because she has recognized that entertainment is key on social media. People are there for that. So she uses that to promote her business. She has recognized the game that Instagram likes, and she has found a way to play that to her advantage. Now, if you compare her account to mine, you will see that I don't. I can't remember the last time I made a reel. I don't make items to entertain people. I am very selfish in my content. You can kind of see who's going to get more traction here. But you can see I also know. I know what would work, what I could do to make sales of my things, and yet I don't do it. Why is that? Well, because you're watching. Why? Because I'm here on YouTube, and YouTube is where I make a big chunk of my income. So this is where I put my time, my effort, my stuff. If YouTube went out of the window tomorrow and ceased to exist, I would cry. But after I'd done that, I would start focusing really hard on Instagram. I can't do it to the point that the successful sellers do because I just don't have the extra time. And you might find that too. You might decide that you don't have the time, and to do something like that would spread yourself out too thinly. If you can recognize that, that's good, because then you can just let yourself off the hook. You don't need to make Instagram or any other platform work for you if you don't have the time and the energy to do so. Okay, so I've given you some examples and hopefully that's made it a bit clearer. If you watched my last video and you thought, right, okay, well, I know now that my audience is not the right audience for selling things, well, then you have to ask yourself, do you want to try again with a different strategy to get sales, but that knowing that that will mean having to play the game by the platform's rules, and that could mean a whole extra job all of its own? Or are you going to accept that this platform just isn't going to work for you in terms of that and focus your energy on something else? Another example, I'm going to do that at some point. I've already explained how I don't use Instagram to try and make sales specifically, as just to talk to my existing audience. And at some point I am going to try out Pinterest. I don't use it for my business whatsoever. And I'm curious to see if that would be a better fit, because people don't go on there so much for entertainment. They can use it if they're bored for the scroll. I know I do. But I also know that sometimes I have gone on there when I've been looking for a thing, and I've kind of used it as a search engine to find that thing, because you can get links from all sorts of platforms and the such. So I've often found things on Etsy better on Pinterest than on Etsy itself, which blew my mind. And it was also the thing that made me think that maybe I should look into it. People on that platform have a different intention to people who are on social media, so it might be a better fit. And this is the platform where I will be doing what Bex from the Pigeon's Nest has done on Instagram, where you try and marry entertainment with business. You see? You're playing by the platform's rules. Now, before I stood up to make this video, I watched one of my older videos, which was one that I did quite some time ago on this very topic, on the topic of attracting the right customers and repelling the wrong ones. And it's old, but it's a good one, if I do say so myself. So I'm going to link it here in case anybody would like to have a look, because I appreciate that this video has been very waffly. So this one, if you're still wondering, go give that a watch and I will see you there. Ta-ta.